What's up, hybrids? Welcome back to another episode of the Fandom Hybrid Podcast. This is Hanako, and I am here with Michelle, and we are discussing the second episode of Season 6, Outlander. And the name of this episode is Allegiance, and we get to see a lot of it in this episode. And we get to see a lot of kind of back and forth, like,
ma'am, we do.
What's about to happen? We start out with the natives, though, with the Native Americans, which I don't think we've seen them. Did we see them I don't think we saw them last season. We saw Ian come back.
No, we didn't see him
from the Mohawk, but we haven't seen them since season 4. Mm-hmm. So,
it's the Cherokees. So no, we have not seen them at all last season.
Yeah. And these are Cherokee that we have encountered before, because these were the Native Americans who saw Jamie, fight a bear with his bare hands. So he has a little bit of a established relationship with them. And now as the Indian agent, I hate saying that, but as the Indian agent.
I can't. Native American representative.
There you go. So as the representative, he is there to try to broker some peace between the natives and the king, basically saying, okay, you know what? We want you guys to be on our side. This is what we want to try to do. And this whole exchange to me was a little uncomfortable, because you can tell Jamie does not want to be there. If you knock my mic out, we're going to fight. My cat is walking all across my desk. She has not bothered me all evening, but now that I want to start recording, she wants to start messing with everything. So if my video goes out or my mic starts sounding funny, it's her fault.
Yeah, she wants to be a part of the podcast.
You know what? She should have been in here from the time I was getting prepped. But no, you can't come in all late. So anyway, the scene seemed a little strained to me, because it's like Jamie and Ian don't know what's going to happen with the natives, during the American Revolution. That part of the conversation comes in a little bit later. Mm-hmm. But as he's sitting there talking to them, they are making it clear, okay, there's something you can do for us. We want weapons, not just, knives or whatever. We want guns.
Lots of them.
We want lots of guns. We want to be able to defend ourselves against these other pale faces who keep crouching in our territory. I was like, are we going to have to watch this season? I don't want to watch the slaughter of Native Americans, but I have a feeling it's coming.
It is, because it's going to play a part with Ian later. So it is.
I know.
We're going to see that struggle there.
Yeah. And we still at this point in the story don't know exactly why Ian left the Mohawk.
We don't.
We know that he started there as an unwilling captive, because of the whole thing with Roger. They sold Roger to the Mohawk when they thought that he was the one that raped Brianna. They had to go through this whole thing of going to find him, rescuing him, and Ian stayed behind in exchange for Roger as kind of like a penance for his part in what happened to Roger and subsequently Brianna, because then Brianna was sitting there the whole time thinking Roger had just abandoned her. She went through her whole pregnancy alone. She gave birth alone, all because, of that whole miscommunication, that whole mishap that we won't even go into. But so as Ian was there, he apparently made a life for himself. When he comes back, he has some of the markings of the Mohawk. Mm-hmm. He's adopted their way of dress, a lot of their customs. And we get a hint last season of the fact that he may have had a wife and that things didn't work out with the wife, but we don't really get a lot of detail about that.
We get a little bit of tidbit towards the end of this episode, which we'll get to later, but yes.
Yeah.
And then last season, a little bit of the last scene, not last season, season before, when we saw that last bit with him with the Mohawk, you saw him go through the little ritual or challenge, like do he deserve to be there? And he
Mm-hmm.
got through it. So we know, okay, at some point he's going to be a part of that tribe. So,
but he left it, and we don't know why. Have some speculation now because, like I said, he mentioned his wife in the last season, and then we see towards the end of the episode, after Marsali is giving birth to the baby, that he had a son before. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that didn't turn out well, and that's why he ended up coming back.
That's what I assume too.
Yeah, everybody's going through some stuff this season.
Yes. So sitting there, making that, asking for their request with lots of guns. Yeah, you can see that it's kind of hard because Jamie doesn't quite know how their future will lie and which way he should go with this.
Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't know if the natives,
give them the guns.
Yeah.
So,
but he doesn't know if the natives, okay, if we give them the guns and this war breaks out, are they going to be fighting on our side, or are they going to be fighting against us using the guns that we have supplied them with to fight us? So he has a valid concern.
He does.
And luckily he has a little bit of knowledge from Claire, but again, Claire was not raised in the Americas. Like, she was only there for a few years, and probably just never really thought about the history of America because she never really thought that she was going to go back,
she just knows the major points that you learn in school.
Right. Taxes on the tea. Doggone it. I can't get my tea because of the stupid taxes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she doesn't know the fine details of, okay, we have these Native Americans, they normally fought for the king. Now, what happened when we have the Revolutionary War? We don't know.
And all the other stuff. She just knows taxes on the tea, and I was on the losing side.
Right, that's it.
That's about it. But that's
the Tea Party was the beginning. She was like, "Oh, this is the beginning." I'm like, "No, so some other stuff was happening before, but hey, it was the beginning because you knew about that part."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep. But we're gonna come back to them later. Let's talk about the Christies.
Okay, I thought you was about to get into we'll leave that one alone. What happened in the tent, but we'll get to the Christies. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. We got to talk about the Christies because I have it playing in the background. And old Tom Christie and his old decrepit hand came up, and I was like, okay, we got to go ahead and talk about him and his. So we've made it no secret that neither one of us like Tom Christie.
No, and it didn't help. This episode pushed me over the edge, particularly because you did not want your hand fixed. And okay, I can deal with that. You don't want Claire to touch it. You want to go about your business. This is how the Lord made you, everything. But the only reason you change your mind,
because you want to whoop your daughter's ass and you can't hold a belt.
You can't hold a belt. And when I tell you, I love the look on her face.
Girl, that
was the best part ever.
I was dying when she was looking at him. Just the look on her face was like, yeah, you're talking all that smack, but you can't even hold a belt to discipline me.
Nothing.
That was so satisfying.
Yes, it was.
But then when he turns around and he goes to Claire and he was like, I've reconsidered. I want the surgery on my hand. I can't write. And you've been managing all these years. Why now? I looked at him like, if the only reason why you want to get your hand fixed is so you can hold that belt to discipline your child, I was like, maybe that's not it. Maybe he just wants to be close to Claire or something. I don't know.
No, I mean, he has, I'm trying to say this the most polite way possible, but that's what he really wanted to do, was beat her and beat his daughter, and he couldn't do it. And that's the only reason why he changed. So I'm having the feeling that, he gets off on this. Because I can't, what did she do? The milk is spoiled. I mean, what is there?
Right.
You drop it, she's cleaning it up off. I mean, because she spent some time with Claire. So you gonna tell me every little thing, you gonna beat her?
Yeah.
So you got to get your hand fixed. So to me, you have an issue with women.
Oh, of
and
course. Of course.
You get off on this.
Mm-hmm.
So
very much
that was, so no, I don't care for him. And this episode did not help.
No,
me over the
not
edge.
at all. But it's interesting because you see when Claire leaves out of there and she goes and she sees Alan and Malvin, she's talking to them. Alan is a little bit of a contradiction to me because he talks about the way his father teaches and the way his father has raised them almost with a little bit of disdain. Yes. Like he doesn't approve of it, or he thinks it's over the top, or he just doesn't like it. But then when Malva also speaks that kind of same thing, or when she kind of tries to assert herself, like, yes, I have interest in learning how to be a healer, and this all and this kind of stuff. I was like, well, no, she has chores. And I'm like,
he enforce his daddy's rules then.
Like, this is how it starts.
Mm-hmm.
This is how it starts. But
because I thought he was different, especially he was stealing, and he was talking to Ian. I'm like, okay, maybe he's different. Like Melva's different from her dad. He's different from, but then the disdain look when he's talking about how the dad is raising him, mm-hmm. Tom Christie is raising him, but then you enforce that on your sister.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay.
I don't get it, but at the same time, it's kind of it's almost like
he's riding a fence. He doesn't know. I don't think he knows where his place is.
I don't think so. He does seem a little bit kind of unsure mm-hmm. with, I guess, like you say, his place on the ridge. Like, he is Tom Christie's son, but Tom Christie obviously doesn't have a lot of respect for his children, because he comes from that time when respect for your children, or what's that? We don't do that. You either do as I tell you to do, or you don't. And when you don't, oh, you're a disappointment. You're this, you're that, you're a sinner, in Tom Christie's words, You're
dead to me.
So it's kind of like he's trying to figure out, like, he knows he doesn't want to go in the same path of his father, but at the same time, I don't think he really properly knows how to disconnect himself from that and be his own person. Because if this is all you've ever known, and you've had no other examples of how to be something other than that, then it's going to sneak its way in there, especially with your sister, young, pretty girl. The ridge is full of, guys who are her age. Mm-hmm. If she decided that she wanted to court or whatever the case may be, however they did things on Frasers Ridge back in those days. But it's interesting to see two kids come from the same person, and one of them is so conflicted that he doesn't know what he stands for, or what he wants to be, or what he wants to do, or what he wants to say. And then you have the other one who is very clearly outspoken, but then, when she's fussed at or when she's scolded, she kind of sinks back into herself. But it's obvious that she is not meant to be caged. And I have a feeling that's going to be a problem later on, but
because she's adapting and she's learning. That's why she loves being around Claire. So mm-hmm. she's all the things that her dad has taught her, but she's seeing that you need to make an adjustment to your thinking mm-hmm. and to a way of life really is. Right. So,
like, why can't a woman be a physician? And, they kind of say that to Claire. They're like, we're just surprised that a woman would be a physician. And what is it that she tells Alan? She said, well, if I need a tune up, or if I need my broomstick to be fixed, I know where to bring it. And it's like, I like the fact that she is she's taking that in stride now, because, Claire, like she said, she's been called witch so many times, it probably doesn't even bother her now. But still, you're dealing with a new group. You're dealing with a very religious group. So even though Jamie is the leader on Frasers Ridge, it wouldn't take much for some kind of rebellion or some kind of, mob to go after Claire. I don't think. But and this wasn't this the episode? Was this the episode with the weird? No, that was the next episode, I think. So we'll talk about that later.
No.
We'll talk about that later. But yeah, there was one touching line in that whole exchange where Claire was talking to the Christie children. When Malva expressed her interest in learning how to be a healer, Claire invites her. She says, "My daughter, Marsali." And I was like, oh, she called her daughter, which is sweet because, how things started out with them.
Oh, yes.
So,
her mom was a pistol. So,
right. And then when Marsali first met Claire, she was like the whore.
Right.
The whore.
Well, that's what her mom was talking about. Her mom was mad about that.
Yeah.
Taking her man from the beginning. And then she got him back. And then she taking him again.
You can't keep what you never had.
Yeah, that is true.
So,
and she never had him. So that's.
But Claire does go to see Marsali the next morning, and Malva does show up, and she shows up, and Claire's starting to show her how to take blood pressure and feel for the pulse. And we notice that Marsali has another bruise. And, this is something that we discussed in the last episode. Yes. And I said I didn't think that Fergus was being abusive. And it turns out that he's not. Marsali,
she's a hothead.
She is a hothead. She gets it honestly. She gets it from Larry. But, she basically says, yeah, he just grabbed my arm because I tried to hit him with something, or she threw something.
Poser. I had to look it up. Poser.
Okay, what is it?
It's a washing tool. It's almost look like a plunger. Almost, but you use it for washing.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to go back. I had to actually go back, closed caption on, what did she go after him with? Poser. And then I looked it up. So it's a washing tool.
Okay. So yeah, she apparently went. Yeah, she went after him with it because Fergus has been drinking steadily. He's been drunk. He's not been helping her with the kids. She's heavily pregnant. She's almost due to give birth, and she's got 3 little ones at the house. And Germain is his father's son. He's a little mischievous something, and it's just getting to be a lot for Marsali. And she threw something at him, and he grabbed her, and I guess he grabbed her hard enough to either bruise her, or maybe she was trying to move. But she admits it to Claire. She was like, no, he didn't do this, but he did try to stop me because I kind of went off.
Yeah.
And then they have the conversation where she says, he's been drinking a lot because he feels like he failed us. He feels like he should have been there to protect us, to help, to prevent what happened with the Browns. And you can see when Marsali mentions it, Claire does that thing where she's having her, it's her trigger moment.
The darkness comes over, and she immediately runs home. So far they are making this I'm not saying she's an addict at this point, but she's kind of slowly going down that path. Yeah.
To where every time that trigger happens, she's going to have to go and self-medicate to kind of forget it. And I was okay.
I was okay at night because you're having a hard time sleeping. Okay. But when it's during the day and you're triggered and you can't wait to get to the house, to self-medicate. Yeah, we have a small little issue here.
Especially if you're supposed to be responsible for taking care of other people on the ridge.
So there's an emergency, you're knocked out.
That's my feeling.
Marcy goes into labor, you're knocked out.
And Claire's too important on the ridge for that. Not to say that she should ignore what she's going through because of who she is and what she does on the ridge. But I just don't want this to become a big thing for her. No. Because again, I feel like it's so out of character for her to get into that, to be for us, it's like a comparison with drugs. Like, oh, okay, I can't cope, I'm going to use drugs. Or, oh, okay, I'm in pain, I'm going to use drugs. And that being the first thing, instead of talking it out with your husband, talking it out with your daughter who has been through a similar experience, just opening up, period. But Claire is keeping everything so close to the chest, I think, because she doesn't want to admit that she's vulnerable. She doesn't want to admit that she's still affected. She wants to come across as strong so that people don't worry about her. But what was it that you said in the last episode? Even the strong people need checking up on.
They do.
And she can't be what she needs to be for everybody else if she can't do that for herself.
Right. And then they're slowly seeing that, okay, she's okay. We're going to stop asking if she's okay, because she must be okay. And she's not.
Yeah. But I mean, and then even when she gets to the house, she comes into her surgery, she turns around, and when she closes the door, she thinks she sees the image of Lionel Brown, and she hears him. And then that's when she goes for the ether. And I'm just like, somebody's going to have to excise him out of that space. But then also, I was thinking about it too. Marsali has this thing about when she killed Lionel, she was like, is he going to haunt me? And it's almost like, because that's where he died, it's almost like his presence is there. Maybe not intentionally, but one could argue, yeah, that's probably his spirit. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna haunt you to the end of your days because y'all killed me. But dude, you deserved it.
You did. And we must not forget that. And his brother must not forget that either. So
we won't talk about his brother, because I just feel like, again, things back then were such that, oh yeah, we kidnapped this woman and we took her from her land. And oh yeah, several of my men raped her. No big deal. But you killed my brother. And I'm going to come after you for that. Okay, whatever. But, okay, so before we move on, let's go back to the tent.
Just a little humor. It was
funny.
It was funny. And Ian was just, he was tickled, but
Ian was no help.
He wasn't, but he thought this was entertaining. But
I'm like, Ian, you're single. You could have told the women to come over there if that was the case. Your uncle is not about this life.
No, at all. He said, I made a pledge. Please tell him I made a pledge.
And he was just sitting there like, he was like, no.
And the one time he gets offended is because one said, I wouldn't want a kid with red hair. What's wrong with red hair? Nothing's wrong with red hair. However, that got him excited for when he came home the next scene.
Girl.
He couldn't wait to get home to see his dear Claire.
So like I said, we've been seeing a lot more. Well, I won't say a lot more, because we've always had intimate scenes with Jamie and Claire throughout the seasons. Even last season, when there was so much going on, you still saw it.
Yeah.
But we've gotten it 2 episodes in a row now. That I don't think that's happened in a while.
No.
So, and it's just like the last episode, we saw the very intimate, very, slow, and the very, just, it was a lot more romantic, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And actually, this one was very,
love making. This was, a
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yes. But it also shows that you can have relations at any age and they're older. Now, he may have wanted to do it again. And like he said, if I was, they said, what did he say again? If I was not old, I have you on your knees and ass in the air.
I was like, okay, Jamie.
Okay. However, it shows that, they still have intimacy and have this even as an older age. Because right now, what is their age actually?
I believe they are both in their 50s at this point. I think Claire may be on the upper end of that.
I heard that
if I'm
close
not
to
mistaken. I have
60.
to go back and look, but yeah, I think they're in their like late. Well, no, maybe not late 50s because I remember. No, it's got to be earlier 50s because Jamie had his 50th birthday while they were getting ready to fight the regulators. That like right around that time they were fighting and Murta died. Jamie had just had his 50th birthday. I remember that because they had the whole scene in the tent where he was looking at his, talking about, well, it still stands up and salutes in the morning. So yeah,
I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes. So it does show that older people can be intimate and have those quickies in the mid-afternoon with the whole house hearing what's going on.
But then you get the red coats coming, right? Now I realize that we are talking about a time where all of this is coming into play and they are talking about real historical events. But can I just say, I'm so sick of seeing the red coats. I'm so sick of seeing them. I'm sick of the British. Can we find some way to tell the story without them? Because I just don't want to see them. But anyway, this particular visit is when Jamie is meeting with Lieutenant McDonald, and you think that he's going to relay the request from the Cherokee about the guns. And he's like, nope. And Ian tries to kind of come in
and talk over him.
And I'm like, oh, Ian, don't do that. But this is when
what helped him with that was when they had their little moment upstairs. He did ask Claire after they were done about what happened to the Native American during this time. So it's a lot to weigh on you when you kind of know, you don't know exactly, but you know how the future is going, and you have to figure out what decisions to make now that won't,
and how they're going to affect later on.
Right? Especially with the Native Americans, because it can go either way, and you don't know.
Yeah, because Claire knows a little bit about what happened, but I don't think she studied it intensively. So when Ian goes to Brianna and asks, Brianna, of course, was raised in the States, so she would have learned a little more American history than Claire. So she knows, and she was like, yeah, this war doesn't turn out too good for the natives, and that kind of informs Ian his opinions, because he tells Jamie, he was like, look, that's my people too. And if it comes between standing for them or against them, I'm standing with them. They need to be protected. They need to be helped. And we need to get them those guns. And Jamie is still kind of on the fence. Like, I don't know what to do. But, Jamie has been kind of on the fence in between these two worlds for a very long time. And he says that to Claire too. He's like, look, I can't be a rebel and loyal to the crown. And it's just, I'm being pulled in two different directions and I can't keep doing this.
He's going to have to make a definitive decision. He's going to have to draw the line because you can't. Like when the war happens, you can't be, I put on the red coat, then I take the red coat off, I put on the red. You can't do that. You're going to have to make a decision, and it's going to tear up y'all little peace that y'all have, which is not really peaceful. Really,
no,
but it's going to happen. So I do like that he does change his mind at the end, but we'll get to the end when he changes.
I mean, we can talk about it now, just because the reason why he did it is such a beautiful reason.
It is,
and we'll get to Marsali and the birth, but Marsali has the baby in this episode, and as I mentioned earlier, he is born with dwarfism. And so it's a difficult thing for Fergus to, and we don't see a lot of his reaction. We just see his reaction and then he kind of leaves because he's trying to process it. But there's a point where Ian goes down and he's visiting Marsali and he's holding the baby, and they're cooing over the baby, they're fawning over him, and he tells Marsali, I had a child. And he basically says about Fergus, he'll come back. He's hurting now and he's grieving now, but he'll be back. And Jamie happens to overhear this exchange because, again, Ian never said anything to them. I don't even think he's told Jamie that he was married. I know he mentioned it to Claire and Brianna, like, is there anything that can be fixed between a man and his wife? And I think, of course, Claire and Brianna figured that out. But when Jamie witnesses this exchange and he goes back, he's at the house late at night. Claire comes down because he's not in bed, and he's writing his letter to Lieutenant McDonald saying, hey, the Cherokee would like guns. And she was like, you changed your mind? He said, yeah. He said, Ian had a child with his Mohawk wife.
And he said, that is his family.
And he has to, he's loyal to them because that's his family. And my loyalty is to him. And I knew that was coming out of his mouth before girl.
I was crying. I was like, oh, that is so beautiful.
I was like, why am I even crying? Because I knew that was going to happen. I knew he was going to say something like that because this is Jamie Fraser we're talking about.
I know, but it was beautiful.
It was. It's gotten to that point where now when we watch the episodes, I think she waited until the end of the third episode, but like in the episodes now, Michaela's just like, Jamie will say stuff and she'll just be like,
yeah. Where
is he? Like, where is mine? She was like, who writes this? He's perfect. She was like, this is why I have such high expectations of men, because of Jamie Fraser.
And there's another one. He's not a great man, but if listeners ever watch This Is Us, that's how they write the dad.
Okay.
That's how they write him. So, I mean, he's not perfect. He was alcoholic, but he will say lines like that, and you, oh my
God. Gotcha.
That is a perfect dad, or that is a perfect husband. That's the perfect friend. And you'd be like, wow, the things they write for him, it's the same exact thing. That's the same feeling. And you're like, oh, wow.
Right.
We find more of them.
So. But yeah, so Jamie has, he's kind of made his choice at this point. He's like, all I can do is ask. And where it goes from there, it's just up to fate. It's up to history. It's up to whatever, but it's out of my hands. I've done what I need to do. His conscience is clear, whichever way it goes. So, we'll have to see how that goes.
Right. We started off with, no, I'm not going to get them the guns, to, okay, wait a second. That's Ian's family and he's my family. So this is what I'm going to have to do.
Yeah.
And then she's right there saying, I think this is the right thing to do.
Of course, because she got his back.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This is the episode with the strange funeral.
Before we get to the funeral, because we got a little bit of Roger and Brianna, you had mentioned during when we did our pre-show about them having that second child. So they kind of hinted at it again, especially when everyone thought she was pregnant. And she's like, really? So that's all I can do for you guys? I have a new invention. And
which like, everybody was so not impressed with.
Right. Oh, wow. But they were so like, you're pregnant? You're pregnant? You're pregnant? Oh, a lighter. Oh, it's a match. Oh, okay.
I was like, that's definitely old-fashioned values, because it's like, oh, you have a big announcement. Oh, it has to be you're pregnant, because what else could it be? What else could be that important?
Right. So, but then they talk about it and that they've been trying, and it's, hasn't come. So I'm like, okay, they're just giving us a warning that
this is probably going to happen. So for those of us who have read that part of the book, this is kind of warning us, okay, so at some point Brianna and Roger are going back to the future. It has to happen, because I know that they have made their decisions to stay, but I think there's some things that happen in the later books that I'm not fully aware of yet that are affected by the fact that they go back to the future. and it kind of drives part of the story. So I think at this point they have to go back.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not at the end of this season. It might be part of next season. We are getting that extended season next year. So it may be part of that. I don't think they'll do it now because we only have, again, I think this season is actually 7 episodes and not 6. I meant to look it up earlier and I forgot, but I don't think they have time to do that. Like, have her go through a whole pregnancy and then, because I think
everything else been, going at a nice pace. So
right,
that'll be a quick, I got pregnant and I'm having the baby the next episode.
Because I think when they went back, I think the little girl's name was Amanda. They called her Mandy. I think she was close to 3 when they traveled back. So yeah, so it was some years.
Okay, so that may be next season.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
So that brings us to Roger being the pastor on the Frasers Ridge. So we go to the funeral.
Temporary. He's just a stand-in because the other pastor got delayed or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, to say his first act as the Frasers Ridge minister was a success is maybe not. No. I guess it can be accurate if you want to think about the fact that the person whose funeral he was presiding over actually was not dead. Like, she literally started moving in the middle, and Germain is looking at her and they're praying, and he's like, Granny, and Claire's like, shh. And as she starts breathing again, he's like, Granny. She's like, what, do you have to go to the privy? He's like, no, she's moving. And of course, this lady, she sits up and everybody's looking around. Of course, I was like, oh Lord, because of course, Claire takes off her shawl and she goes over to cover her. I said, Claire, they're going to think you're a witch. They're going to think you.
But this is what in my note taking, all of us are in there. It's just not Claire. It's other friends. It could be somebody else. Why does it have to be me?
Because Claire's the one that's different.
I know, but
because she's the one that's different. She's the one that's the healer.
If it was just me and her in my surgery and she popped up alive again, walking around,
that might be different. That would be different.
But this was another hilarious scene to me because that woman was truly complaining about her funeral.
She was, because apparently her son-in-law arranged the funeral and they were doing it in the half-built church that Tom Christie and his people are building. So you don't even have, like, all the walls are kind of sort of up, but you don't even have a full roof. You don't have, like, there's still holes because the walls are not fully put up yet. And she's complaining. She was like, oh yeah, you cheap thing. She was like, did you pay the sin eater? And I was like, wait, sin eater? Really? Yeah. And he's like, well, we didn't have time. She was like, you didn't pay the sin eater. And then here comes the sin eater coming in. I was just like, I'm so confused. Like,
yeah, that was different.
I only know about the sin eater from Sleepy Hollow. So yeah. That's
what the bread was for. I didn't know that. But they didn't even have the right outfit on. She was talking about her outfit too.
She just had all kinds of issues. But I guess, when you think about it, when you plan a funeral and they're probably like, well, she wants it this way, but she's not going to know the difference.
Well, she woke up and knew the difference. And then Roger was like, enough. I mean, you got this moment. This is your final moment with your family.
Mm-hmm.
And you complaining.
Right. Because, Claire tries to feel around to figure out what's going on. She was like, oh, she had such and such aneurysm that would have caused her to go into a deep sleep. And Roger's like, okay, can you save her? She was like, not in the next 5 minutes, which is probably all she has. So, she does make up with her family. She does make up with the son-in-law. She tells the son-in-law that he was a great son to her. And he seemed really touched. And then she died. And I was just like, that was weird. I noticed I've been saying that word a lot lately, talking about our shows weird. But I mean, how else can you describe it? This woman literally sits up in her own funeral and everybody else is there like,
Yeah.
Scared.
It was weird.
Scared to the point where they have now said that Claire's not allowed to come back into the church because
and there were some friends who left the funeral. They were like, I'm not a part of this, so I'm going home.
See, I don't know. Maybe it's me, but I guess I would feel like this is somebody that I cared about and they died. And if they sat up and I'm just like, oh, and like she didn't look dead. She didn't look like a zombie. She literally looked like she had been sleeping. She just woke up. I probably would have been like, oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I would get the hell out of there. I don't know what the hell is going on in here, but I'm going to leave for about an hour, 10 minutes, and y'all figure it out, and I'll come back in. Because if I'm at a funeral, even for a loved one, and they pop up, I'm popping out. I don't know what's about to happen. I don't want to find out. I'll wait 30 minutes. Y'all come outside and get me.
You know what? We used to have a joke about that. So we lost one of my brother's best friends when I was 17. And it's so funny because when we lost him, there was a group of us when we would talk about him, we always said, we feel like it's a practical joke. Like we feel like we're going to show up to the funeral and his ass is going to sit up and be like, aha, I got you all. That's what I thought about when I saw this scene. I was like, she was just like, oh yeah, I just wanted to see if y'all were going to do what I told you to do. Nope, I have the wrong outfit on. Why am I in this? What kind of bit? I think she called it a barn. She was like, what kind of barn do you have me in? Like, it was almost like it was a joke. She was like, oh, okay, well, I'm trying to say, okay, so who showed up at my funeral and who didn't show up? Oh, okay. So it was just one of those comical moments.
Yes.
And then, of course, she dies for real. And it's just, amen.
Yeah. And
at this point, what else can you do?
Yeah. And another weird thing is, you gonna say something to your daughter? Hello, I love you too. You did the best you could too.
Well, I mean,
and the son-in-law, and then they going back and forth, and then finally, oh, you were the best.
But you know, I guess she felt like the daughter would, you know, back then again, husband is the head of the household. He's gonna make all the decisions. So she's probably like, oh, I know if it was up to her, all of this would be different. So this is your fault.
Yes, that's true.
That's probably what it was. So,
but yeah, that it was a. I don't really know why we had the scene, to be honest with you, or what I was supposed to take from it. That later we won't let Claire back into the house of the Lord, but I don't know why else. What I'm supposed to get from this.
I think it was supposed to add some levity, or it was supposed to add some gravity. It was supposed to balance out the seriousness of the episode, because, you know, you had a little bit of seriousness before it, and then you have the seriousness after it, because immediately after that scene is where Marsali goes into labor, and we figure out that something is not quite right. Like she's having a really stressful time with this labor, and Claire is worried that Marsali is not going to make it. Like she may have to do a cesarean to save the baby, but Marsali won't make it. And of course, Fergus is nowhere to be found. And, you know, I think it was supposed to, with a lot of episodes, you know, you get the funny stuff before you get the really serious stuff. Because like I said, when I messaged you and you were like, I'm about to watch this episode, I was like, make sure you have tissues, because there was a lot of crying in this episode, at least for me. You know, but I'm just overly sensitive anyway. And I cry at the drop of a dime when it comes to stuff like this. But this episode, especially the back part of this episode, because you have Roger confronting Fergus about not being there for his wife, because Fergus is sitting at home. He's, you know, drunk, and he feels like there's nothing he can do. He's like, oh, she's with Claire. She'll be fine. And Roger's like, dude, your wife is in harm's way. And she keeps asking for you. She's crying out for you. And when Fergus is like, what can I do? He was like, I don't know. But apparently she thinks there's something you can do. So you need to man up and go be the man that she thinks you are, or at least pretend. And maybe when you see her, you won't have to pretend. You know? And I guess that was enough for Fergus to go.
Man up and get there.
and be with Marsali.
He did a fabulous job. I mean, fabulous. It was fabulous. Now, if I could give birth like that, I mean, I clearly wouldn't need any medication. That's the way to go.
Was, I was not expecting it, although I'm trying to remember if that was written like that in the book. I believe it may have been, but again, it's been so long since I've read that book that I don't remember. But when he came in, first of all, the look of joy on her face when he showed up. And I don't know if he was still drunk. He was playing it off if he was. He was basically like, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And she was like, I think I'm going to die. He said, you think you're going to die all the time. And it's like, again, those little bits of humor in this serious situation to kind of balance it out, because she's worried, she's stressed. And you and I are both mothers. We've both been in labor. You know, stress is not good for the mother. And the baby can feel all of that. The babies can feel that anxiety. They can feel that shift. And so him being there and still being Fergus, you know, cracking his jokes, but being so loving and so attentive to her when she's like, yeah, I think I'm going to die. And he was like, no, you're not going to die. Yeah. We've made it through this before. We're going to do it again. But, you know, obviously because of the dwarfism, there were some issues with her birth, and she knew something was wrong. Like when she went into labor at the table, she said, Claire, something is wrong. It doesn't feel right. Right. You know,
and then also how Claire was looking, you know, something was wrong. So she's like, oh, I think I'm going to die this time for real. However, I love their chemistry and connection when they were together.
They've always
rubbing on her belly. I mean, when she saw him and then he explained what can help the wound move. I'm like, yeah. Claire, like, okay, I'm going to go give me some tea.
Right. Because I was not like so basically what happens in the scene is he starts rubbing her belly, then he starts rubbing her breast, and while he's doing this, he's telling Claire about a technique that they used when he used to be in the brothel. He was like, when the women would have difficulty giving birth, he said sucking on the nipples helps the womb to move, and it can help with the labor. It can help, you know, the baby start to be on its way. And he said a lot of the women in the brothel used to do that for each other if they were having a difficult birth. So then he starts like literally suckling Marsali right there. And Claire's like, yeah, I'm gonna let you guys have your privacy. And she goes out into the room with the others, and he's there ministrating to Marsali. And we do get to see a little bit of that intimacy, which I was like, okay, I think we've seen, I'm trying to think, have we seen an intimate scene like that between Fergus and Marsali before? I don't think we have.
No, I don't think so.
So yes, finally we get to see it with
not
somebody
even like when they got married, because they got married in the islands, right? Yeah, no, not on the ship. No,
right? No, I don't think we have. But yeah, so you do get to see that chemistry and that intimacy with them, even though they have been like, it's almost like they have been fighting. They have been going through this terrible time. And it's like the moment he walked in the room, none of that mattered. None of that existed.
It was out the window.
And you got to see it and you got to feel it. And then of course, out there in the kitchen, it's Malva, Claire, Jamie, and Brianna. And they're sitting out there, and all of a sudden they're just talking, and Claire's, I guess, explaining what Fergus was talking about. And then they realize they hear Marsali moaning. They're like, wait, are they? And Claire's like, yep. And then Jamie and Brianna like, yeah, this is not anything I want to hear. I'm going to go. So they go off their separate ways. And then that poor Malva, she's there. She was like, so...
She sounds kind of hurt, but
she sounds like she
likes it.
Right. She was like, so women can like having sex. And I was like, oh, you poor sweet summer child. I felt like old Nan on Game of Thrones. You poor sweet summer child. Like, but again, this is Tom Christie's daughter. So she's probably been taught that that is, that sex is an act for women to, please their husbands.
I don't even think she have even been taught that.
She might not have.
That man doesn't look like he's going to have that conversation with her.
You're right. But Claire has the conversation with her.
Right.
It's
going to get her in trouble. I mean, she's doing what's right, though. She needs someone to talk to her. She doesn't have a mom, and Tom Christie's a little crazy. So she needs someone to talk to her. However, I need her not to go home and say any of the things that Claire says to her. So
I think Mal was a little bit smarter than that.
Just to,
I think she's a little bit smarter than that. But yes.
Just poison your dad when he's sleeping. That's all. I'm sorry.
Did you just advocate murder on this show?
I'm sorry, I did. She should just poison him with the milk. I mean, I'm sorry. It's going to get to a point. It is going to get to a point that she's going to consider it. I think so. I mean, I think she should consider it later on. Like when she wants to lead her own life, she may want to consider. I don't
know if I would say she's
putting a pillow over his head. I don't know, something.
But you know what? He's irritating. And yes, there's a lot of things wrong with him. But I don't think he's done anything yet to justify murder. Now, if you had said that about, let's say, Lionel Brown, maybe even Richard Brown. And I say Richard kind of like, only because I know that he has it out for Jamie. He's like, oh yeah, you brought me my brother's body, but I'm gonna get you.
It's going to get to a point, though. I mean, he is mentally and physically abusive to her. Mm-hmm. And it's going to get to a point that he's not going to let her go. So, yeah, I'm making a joke about it. But later on, it may come a point where it's going to be either him or her. And she's got to choose herself. And I'm sorry. And if that's called throw him off the horse or something, or he falls off a horse and he says, go get me some help. And she does it. I can truly understand.
It's not like he going to be able to catch himself with that bad hand.
So I can understand, because it's going to get to a point where he's taken out. He likes what he's doing when he beats her. I'm sorry, he does. He enjoys it. And he's going to take out his issues that he has with Claire and with Jamie onto her. Mm-hmm. And it's a point where, again, him or her, you choose yourself. Sorry.
I know, but at this point right now in the story, I think murder is a bit much. Just a little bit.
I said later. Maybe next season when she wants to go off. And
no, Anthony's over there on the side. Anthony, did you know your wife was this violent?
Actually, he is asleep. So no, he knows. He is knocked out, but no. Later, it's going to have to happen. But with Marsali and Fergus, you don't need Pitocin. So we realized that we have the new way before Pitocin. We can do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is something that I have actually heard before, like a long time ago, even when I was pregnant. They say sex will bring on labor. And I actually have a friend who found that out the hard way. She was like 3 weeks early because she was having sex with her husband. And then she called me. She was like, I need you to take me to the hospital. I was like, for what? She was like, I'm in labor. And then later on, I was like, why are you 3 weeks? And she was like, yeah, such. And I was like, she said, so yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or some eggplants, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good to know.
But it was a beautiful scene between the two of them.
It was very beautiful.
Very beautiful. And then what happens next?
I mean, and that was, I don't blame Fergus for rushing out, because that is something that was, yes, in a sense, traumatic, but also I think it was just a shock for him. And for everything that they've gone through, he already felt like Marsali was having issues because of him. He felt bad because she got attacked while she was pregnant. So for that to happen, I think, when he looks at Henri Christian and, he's talking to him, he's like, bonjour, bonjour. He doesn't really notice it at first. And then when he sees him and he asks in French, is he a dwarf? Like Marsali doesn't understand the term, but Claire does. And she just looks at him. She's like, Ferguson. He runs. And then when she tells Marsali he's a dwarf and she gives him to Marsali, and Marsali's like, he's beautiful. Girl, when I tell you.
Yeah, I was too. I was like, that is the perfect.
Ugly cry.
Perfect reaction, but that's a mom. It doesn't, this is your baby. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think Fergus, again, we'll find out more about this in the next episode, but Fergus, I think at this point is just like, is this my fault? Mm-hmm. Is this something? Because again, I don't think they knew a lot about what causes birth defects or what causes people to be born different or any of those things. Like even with Claire, miscarrying Faith way back then. Yeah, we know that the stress of her trying to get to Jamie probably was what pushed it over the edge, but she was having some issues before that. And we don't know why. It could have been because she was working in the hospital with all those sick people. And of course, they didn't have the protections that our bodies have now. They didn't have that back then. So she could have gotten sick from something like that or whatever. But I just think at this point, Fergus was just kind of like, oh, here's something else that's my fault. Here's something else that I did. Or maybe he felt like he was being punished because he wasn't there for Marsali and Claire when all of that happened. And it's so sad to see him go through this. But also for me, I think it hurt me more because Marsali is having to go through this because she doesn't deserve it. Marsali, like I said in the last episode, Marsali has been down with Fergus since day one. You know what I'm saying? They got together. She was not of age yet. And they were kind of like, okay, well, we're not doing anything until I become of age, until we get married. Like, but she has always, when Jamie was fussing at him, like, you can't be with her. She was like, excuse me, I can make this decision too. And I want to be with him. Like from jump, she has always had his back. She's never looked at him as less than because he's missing a hand. She's never looked at him as less than because he can't work like the other men work. Like he does other things that contributes, and she's always appreciated him for that, And when we have seen him with the kids, he's been a great father to the kids. We've seen him be a great husband to Marsali. It's just these last couple of episodes where we see his downfall, and it was because of the attack, because he feels like he didn't do enough. So to see him go through that, and then to see her have to suffer the consequences of that, girl, when I tell you, I was like, I had to pause this episode. I was like, I'm tired of crying. I need a break. I don't have the energy for this. I just can't. And then I'm watching this episode and I'm at home sick myself. I'm feeling bad. I have no energy. I'm just laid up looking at this like, this is not good. Y'all can't do this. And then, yeah, it's just, I need them. I know they're going to get through it because it's Fergus and Marsali. But it's hard to watch that journey. And I knew it was going to be hard when they started saying, yeah, Fergus is going to have a huge season. I was like, oh, y'all about to bring all his trials and tribulations to the screen.
They did. They really did.
But Caesar Domboy has been brilliant. And I'm so glad we're getting to see more of him on the screen. And I really want to see more. Because it's, especially the last 2 seasons, I will say, I have felt like those 2 characters were hugely underutilized. And I'm like, but they're such a huge part of the story. So nice to see them getting more screen time. Hope to see them continue to get screen time. And I just, like I said, Fergus is my baby. I'm going to keep saying it. Fergus is my baby. I just want my baby to be okay. I just need him to be okay.
And you saw a glimpse of him when he came to her. You can see it. you can see all those other things just out the window, and he was with her in that moment.
Right.
You can see the couple. You can see his old self. You can see it. So yeah, we got to do it. He's gonna be drinking some more tonight.
If he even shows up at home, but
he probably didn't. And then now here she is. She's gonna go home and have to take care of a newborn baby and your other children.
But Granny and Grandpa are gonna help her with that. So and Auntie Brianna and Uncle Roger and Cousin Ian, they'll all chip in. They're not gonna leave Marsali there to do, for herself. But I find it funny that after she had the baby and Fergus comes in, she's like, never again, Fergus Fraser. No, we are not doing this again. Like 4 is enough. We're not having more kids. And I'm trying to remember. I don't remember if they had more kids in the books. But I want to say, I don't know. This is Fergus we're talking about. So
I don't know. I mean, I was going to say something, but I'm going to leave that alone.
What?
The reason why they have 4 kids. He learned a lot when he was younger.
Well, yes.
He learned a lot.
He learned a lot in the brothel, yep.
Right. So he learned the right way and the wrong way. And he's been doing it the right way, and that's why they have those many children.
Right. Right.
And a great birth plan, too.
Yeah, because apparently that wasn't the first time that they had done this.
So
right. But she didn't, I think for the last baby, she didn't have issues because Claire helped deliver that baby. I think that was Felicity. She didn't have any problems with that one. Maybe the first one, but of course, it was the first one. So she probably had a little bit of a harder time. And that was where they tested that theory out.
Yeah.
Okay. But oh yeah, I need Fergus to be okay. I need him to be okay. Yeah. And that's all I have to say about that. But Malva is there to help out with the birth, so she got some crash course training that night. But yeah, we have a new baby on the ridge, and he's adorable. Yes, I was like, did they get a real baby? Because when it comes to acting, sometimes they have real children, and then sometimes they have like fake babies or I don't know, but it looked like a real baby.
It looked like a real baby to me.
He's so tiny, like so cute. Just we have a baby on the ridge, and I love the fact that Adso was sitting in the bed with Marsali while she was in labor. The cat. The cat was sitting there comforting. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Oh, look at the cat. We're cat lovers, so yeah. Oh, but let's see. Oh, Roger and the matches, and telling Brianna she's brilliant, and telling the little boy what was his name? Is it Aiden? The little boy who got lost and couldn't find his way.
They're helping the mom. I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
But just telling.
He was like, yeah, my wife invented that and she's brilliant. I love that.
I do too, but he had to help her out because she was just feeling so defeated after they were just so excited if she was pregnant, and that wasn't what she's been working on.
Yeah. But she has to remember, and she has to remember she comes from a different time. Even though it's still back in the 60s, that's kind of all a woman was expected to do. But, there were some advances, like her mother was a surgeon at a time when that was almost rare. So she has to do what Claire does. She's going to have to readjust her mind. Like, if this is where you have decided you guys are staying, you've got to readjust your mind to kind of somewhat fit the times. Not necessarily go all the way and be like, okay, yes, I'm just going to revert and just forget about my independence.
Just don't be disappointed that they wasn't excited about your,
because they don't understand it.
And maybe they would have been excited if you kind of said, I have a surprise that I created something. When you just say surprise again, because of the time, the first thought was pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
If you led them on that road of, I have a surprise, I made something.
Right.
Okay, they may have been more excited.
And it's so funny because everybody else was getting excited and Claire was looking like, I don't think that's what she meant. So you could clearly tell who the time travelers were in that scene, or who the people who for whom, pregnancy is not the only big thing she can do, So
he made her feel special.
Mm-hmm.
And the little boy was truly excited about it. He was like, magic.
Yeah, right. And that was what she needed at that moment. Somebody who's a little more innocent, someone who doesn't have the sarcasm of the world, or they don't have that. Yeah, that's
what
she
her
needed.
Family.
Mm-hmm. That's what she needed.
Yes.
So you see this little flirtation stuff going on between Lizzie and Josiah, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Very obvious. And look, the bugs are looking at them like.
I just want to ask some questions about that, but I'll ask that after the recording.
Because you don't want to spoil
it for anyone. So,
well, you can make theories, but I think your theories might be on track. So yeah, we don't want to spoil anyone.
Yeah.
But as Josiah and Mr. Bug are going to town, they're going to like sell some fox pelts and trade some goods and stuff. And the Cherokee have come onto the land. And this is where they're asking Jamie, like, so did you give them my request for guns? And Jamie is like, no, I didn't. You got to trust me. I'm doing this for the right reasons. And they're looking at him like, we got your number. What is it with y'all just like all on my desk today?
That's when Ian decided, okay, well, I'm going to help them get it the best way I can.
Right.
But
because he was like, look, we can't make that decision for them. Like, why can't they defend their home from the people who are taking it? And they've said it, like the Cherokee has they have a treaty line, and supposedly nobody crosses that line into their territory, but people have been doing it, and they've been building and they've been hunting, and it's not right. It literally is that whole colonization thing from the beginning. Like, yeah, I understand this is your line and this is your treaty line, but fuck your treaty line. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hunt and I'm going to build a home and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. No, let's not do that. And Ian sees it. He is like, you know what? No. If you're not going to help them by, making the request that they wanted, I have to go and help them.
Right.
So because
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say that's why it was very powerful when he heard that he had a son.
Yep.
When Ian had the son, and that's his family, and he's my family. So,
right.
I'm gonna change my mind.
But then when you think about that too, his story is so sad because again, we still don't know what happened. And he's been suffering in silence. He's been holding on to that for himself. So that's my other baby. I need him to get it together too. He needs to open his mouth and start talking to some people and letting them know what's going on.
Yes, but he just chooses different moments, like when he opened up to Roger, and then telling Marsali. It's just like little tidbits. You just gonna get a little bit from him. Yeah. But I need you guys to sit around the table and actually ask, what happened? Why did you come back?
I don't know if that's a conversation they're ready to have. Because it's obvious he went through something very painful, very traumatizing. Like, we don't know if the wife died. I don't think she did because of the question that he asked. Like, can what did he say? Can it be that things get fixed between a husband and wife or something? He said along those lines. So I don't think that she's dead, but maybe them losing a child put some strain behind, between them, and he just had to leave, or,
and that's why he said what he said about he's grieving, he will come back.
Because he's had to do that. Now
Maybe
that
he
don't mean you
did.
can go back, because you can't go back to the Mohawk. You gotta stay with us.
Well, maybe he
But
did go back and it was too late with her. And that's when he
could have
came
been.
home.
Mm-hmm. Could have been.
He went off, stayed in the wilderness for a while, came back, and then she was like, no, I don't want you back.
Yep.
So we don't know. We're just speculating here, but something
so
happened.
much drama. So much drama.
Yes. So
let's talk about this church. Let's talk about this church. Because the church is coming along quite nicely, and Jamie rides over there. And he's like, yeah, so I was going to say this before, but since you was having a funeral, I didn't want to be disrespectful. And what was it that Tom said? He was like, I've said a man must build a house for God before he builds one for himself. Because Jamie is like, so you haven't started on any of your homes yet? And Tom is like, no, we're starting on the church first. And Jamie is like, okay, so we've come a long way from Artsmere, but you haven't forgotten your Freemasons vow, have you? And Tom is like, no. So Jamie's like, yeah, so this is not going to be, it's going to be a meeting place. It's going to be a meeting place where everybody can come, no matter what their religion, no matter what they practice. And my wife better be allowed in here.
Yes, he had to add that on to the end.
And then when he said that, my wife too, he kind of stepped in front of him. He was like, and if I hear anyone accusing her of witchcraft again, he was like, I will tear this shit down. I will bring this down. But no.
And then he stepped away, and then he was like, and then maybe you should add a bell.
And maybe some windows. Some windows would be nice. Like, okay, Jamie, the interior decorator. But I mean, he designed the house on the ridge. He even designed the small house, and built that with his own hands. So he knows what he's talking about. But watching Tom having to kind of, swallow his pride and listen to what Jamie says, because Jamie is like, look, this is still my land. I can still kick you off if I want. He's not going to say that because this is Jamie. He's not going to say it.
He's not even going to do it.
But the implication is there. But of course, that's when Tom comes into the, place, and Malva is actually I think she's looking at some notes from Claire. So she might be looking at some stuff that Claire had given her to study, because when he walks in, she puts it down and she moves it to the side. And then that's when he's asking her about, what she's doing, your chores and the milk. And he's like, this milk is sour and blah, blah, blah. And pull up your skirts.
The land of milk and honey. And didn't he say that? And he doesn't have those things. Yeah, he was taking it out on her.
And then she was like, well, I was going to make some butter. Why haven't you? She was like, it must have slipped some mind. It must have slipped my mind. No, you too busy doing that stuff that Mr. Fraser has given you, and you're not tending to your chores. Well, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna spank your ass and get you back on track. So he has her pull up her skirts, similar to what we saw Jamie and Claire in the first season. And he takes off his belt, but he's talking to her, because what he does, he knocks over the milk. She's down there picking it up, and he says, you have a dark soul just as dark as your mother. And I'm like,
right. And then say, get up. And she's steady wiping. Like she hear him.
And then when she gets up, he has the belt in hand. He can't even hold the belt. I'm like, dude, just put it in your other hand. But apparently you're not left-handed and you can't do that. So he has this belt, and you see him struggling, and he's steady trying to hit her with the belt, and he can't do it. And eventually she just stands up and she's looking at him like,
I'm waiting.
Like, what you gonna do? I mean, the look of contempt on her face, but she looked like she wanted to laugh at him. And he's mad. He's like slamming the belt down, and he's doing all this, and he's holding his hand. And she's just looking at him like, he's like, stop looking at me. Nah, bro, I'm gonna look at you as long as I want to.
Right.
Because you can't do shit. What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
And you can tell that it doesn't even bother her anymore, because her look wasn't like, oh my goodness, I'm about to get, a spanking or anything. She's just like, okay, this is gonna be for 10 minutes. Let me just get ready and prop myself up. Oh, look, you can't even do it. That's the way she's looking. Like, I'm so used to this at this point. And now you can't even get yourself together over there. Yeah. Whatever, dude.
I'm telling you. And then the fact that he goes over to Claire, he's like, yeah, so I've thought about it. And it's affecting the way I write. So now I need my hand fixed. You don't live with this affliction your whole life, supposedly, because he made it seem like this is something he was born with. You've lived with this affliction your whole life. You can live with no. And I know that's not Claire, because Claire wanted to heal him. Yeah. But
I'm trying to figure out when have you been writing? I ain't seen him write one thing. I've been seeing him talking, trying to pick up a belt. Maybe read his Bible, but writing, yes, sure. Okay. Yeah, that's the reason. We know what the real reason is.
Because you want to spank that girl.
And now you have to, because just the look that she gave him, like, look like you never gonna spank me again. So he's like, I have to prove her wrong. I got to get this together.
I still don't know, like, what makes him tick. Like, how did he become? Okay, so I know that him being as pious as he is, he probably was raised that way and just kind of took it and ran with it. But like I said, there's something about the way he is. It's like he has this disdain for Jamie, and we don't really know why. Like, we have glimpses of what happened at Arsmere, but he was acting like that even before. So again, we don't know why. Probably has something to do with the fact that they were Jacobites. But again, the question to me is, okay, you're judging them for being Jacobites. Why were you in prison? Why were you in prison? If so you weren't,
like they committed a sin. You actually committed a sin because you're in, like you said, prison for a reason. So I don't know. I feel the same way. Like, I don't really know his motives. Like, is it because he was raised that way, or is it because he's covering up something inside of him? The friends who hate something inside of them, and then it comes out a different way. I can't figure him out.
Could have something to do with his wife, because we do know that his wife is not there. She's gone. Maybe some kind of experience with her changed him that way. It does happen. So we just don't know.
It does, because even when one of my shows you don't watch, The Handmaid's Tale, we have one of the aunts, and she was like that. She was nice, easygoing, and she just got triggered. Like, she liked helping kids, and then she was with a young lady. She was helping her with her kid, and the young lady turned on her, and then now she starts to do different things to the ladies. So you kind of see it kind of has a turn. So he may be similar. Like, he was probably okay, and if there was a turning point that has triggered him to go far left.
Okay.
So I don't know.
But at any point, he can't get his hand fixed now because he didn't open up the stitches on his other hand, trying to get that belt together so he could whip Malva. So now Claire's like, yeah, so I told you I will operate on that hand. When this hand is done healing you just burst your stitches open again. So you're going to have to wait. So for all of that hemming and hawing you were doing, trying to whip your child, now you have to wait. But you're going to have to wait anyway, because what is he expecting? That she's going to fix his hand and he's immediately going to be No. Just sit over there and suffer in silence. I do not like this man.
No, but you won't let me, let her Malva throw him off a horse yet, but okay.
No, he hasn't.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not
next
yet.
season.
Well, you know what? I'm trying to think. I don't know if he ever actually does anything that I would say would warrant killing him. I don't think he's
not quite saying killing. I'm just saying if he falls off a horse or
well, you
gets
said
hurt, she doesn't
poison.
have to. I did. A slow poison would have been okay, but not killing him. Okay, I understand she's innocent. So, but if he needs some help, she doesn't have to actually go get Claire. She could take her time, maybe take a 2-day trip.
Hey, Marsali? No, let me not. No, because Marsali didn't want to. She didn't want to kill Lionel Brown, but he threatened her.
Yeah.
So.
And she was going through her own trauma too at times because he did hurt her too. So, yeah, that was deep on that one. So, no, I mean, but it'll be nice if Tom Christie leaves. But however, I know he needs to be here and we're going to go through some things and get some things resolved.
Let's hope so. Because I don't know if I can sit through a whole nother season of him acting the way he's acting now. Like he needs a huge, huge slice of humble pie.
Yes, he does.
Not saying that he's arrogant or anything, but he does have this way about him that he feels like because he is a man of God and
that he's better than everyone else. That's what he walks around and acts like, that he's better. And he doesn't understand why Jamie has all these things, these blessings, and he doesn't either. So that's his issue too.
Which is kind of weird because from what I remember from the Bible, you're not supposed to covet material things anyway. So why are you jealous about what he has?
I don't know, but he has brought it up a couple of times.
Yeah. Maybe he's worried for Jamie's immortal soul. I don't know.
But he's gonna cause some problems. So I'm just.
Did you see the previews of the next episode? Like Claire looks like she's about to cut in his hand, and she tells him to take the bit, and he was like, "No, I'll just read my Bible." I was like, "Oh, that's gonna work out well."
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready to see that because Jamie gonna be standing behind him during that surgery. That's gonna happen. Like, oh, you want your Bible? Okay.
And it's funny because he always pops up. So I think he be looking. He over there with the horses. He look around and say, "Oh, Tom Christie heading over there towards my wife. Let me just pop on in and mess with him." Because
he deserves it.
He does.
Because he's an ass.
Right, I was say really. Yeah. He's an arrogant ass. He really is just an arrogant ass. However, he doesn't need to die out on his daughter.
He doesn't need to
later.
Die. He might need to get beat one good time though. You want to take a strap to somebody. You was so
beat him. His daughter, but that's neither here or there.
Maybe Alan, but I don't know if I don't know. Again, Alan is kind of one of those, he's like a question mark because even when Jamie was there, when he went to the church to talk to Tom and he's telling him, okay, yeah. So since you're building this church, let me tell you how things are done here. So this is going to be a meeting place and blah, blah, blah. When he's telling him all that, Alan's just looking at them and then he's going back. He's looking at the church. Right. And he was like, stop, like, oh, okay, can I stop working now? Like, if we're not going to continue this steeple, that means I don't have to be doing it. That's what it looked like. He's like, okay, so what am I doing? Are we doing this or not? Oh, okay, you told Dad it was okay for him to include the steeple, but he needs to put some windows in a bill. Okay, so I guess I gotta work for a little bit more. But he didn't look pleased. I mean, he looked at the whole situation kind of, like, I don't feel like Jamie was disrespectful to Tom Christie, but he did very clearly let it be known, this is my land. And I have given you the grace to be here. So you will do what I say.
And you're going to include everyone.
Right. And you will not undermine me again. And y'all better not call my wife a witch no more. Because I know Jamie is tired of people calling Claire a witch. I mean, even before he found out that she was, a time walker. No. Jamie is probably sick of the word witch. He probably is like, you know what? If I never hear that word again, it'll be too soon.
So, yeah.
But he went and laid down the law.
Yeah, Tom Christie has to be put in his place, because if not, he's going to carry on and feel like he can actually do whatever he wants to do and say whatever he wants to say.
As long as it's within the, what the Bible says and what God says.
Mm-hmm.
So is God telling you to spank your, you know what? Let me not even go down that road. Let me not. Oh, it's so weird because these episodes are longer, but it feels like we covered everything. I feel like we're supposed to be talking for longer because the episode is longer. But we've covered everything.
We covered
all the good points,
all the good points,
all the sexy points, all the sad points. I mean, and I would say this too, as far as the intimacy scenes, I love the way that they write them because they're so respectful. It's like you see the chemistry between the characters. And it's just the way, even with Jamie coming in like, hey, okay, you know what? I got to have you now. And if I wasn't too tired, I would, like, even with those, like, you can put that line in another show and it will be raunchy as hell.
Yes.
It will sound so disrespectful and it can sound so demeaning. But for some reason, when he says it, it doesn't come across that way. And it's because of the connection that he has with his wife.
And the love that he has for her. Yes.
Right.
And even when she was repeating the things he was saying, like you said, I like you, I love you, I must have my inside.
Right.
He's like, I really meant it. Especially that last part.
Yeah, right.
So, but yeah, because we have seen this journey and we know that they deeply respect, like he deeply respects her, and that they love each other. And
I feel like we see the same with Ferguson and Marsali too, because we've literally watched that relationship unfold from the very beginning, just like with Jamie and Claire, and the same with Brianna and Rogers. Like they all have these connections to their characters, and they all have the connections to each other, and they're all relationships that have a lot of love, a lot of respect, a lot of chemistry, but they're so different as well. Like they have that common thread, but they're approached so differently, but all in such wonderful and respectful ways. And it's kind of like, I mean, we've said this, it's almost like you have to watch the scenes like this because you feel like a voyeur, like, oh, I'm not supposed to be watching this. Like it really feels intimate. And I really can see why some of the fans ship those people together in real life, because you feel like, how do you fake that? Like, how do you just film that kind of stuff and then get up and be like, oh, okay, that was a good scene, blah, blah, blah. Like, the scene with Fergus and Marsali, I was like clutching my pearls, like, and I'm not approved by no stretch of the imagination.
No,
I'm not easily embarrassed by any of that stuff, but it was so intimate. I was like, I felt like I was in the room watching them. Like, whoa. But it was such a beautiful scene.
Right.
Such a beautiful scene, especially coming off of what we saw just before that, Fergus being drunk, Fergus being like, oh, I'm not going up there. She doesn't need me. I'm worthless. I'm useless, blah, blah, blah. And Roger's like, dude, regardless of what you think, she's crying out for you. You got to go be there for her. Fuck what you going through. Go be there for her. Right. She's about to bring your child into the world.
Even though they're, fighting, her fighting with him just to get him to stop, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going through something right now. And you can tell, even if she says something that may have hurt his feelings and he has said something, we still love each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we're there for each other, especially when we need each other. It's just that he is going through something.
Yeah. And I think
she's trying to push and help him the best way she can.
Right. And then not only that, too, we have to think about the fact that as a result of all of that, Fergus also had to kill, which I don't think he had really done before. So, he did it as a child at Culloden. Remember, he did kill a soldier, or not. No, it wasn't at Culloden. It was at, I can't remember the name of the other battle, but, he did kill a soldier, but doing that in the face of war and then going and doing it the way that they did it for when they rescued Claire, they were fighting people and having to kill people to defend themselves, but then you turned around and cold-blooded killed the rest of them because of what they did. He's dealing with that too.
And I'm actually going to disagree with you on that one. I think he would be okay with that because that means he was useful. I think it's not being there to help because he feels like he's man enough. I don't know why he wouldn't think he was man enough, because not having that with that one hand, being useful. Now, killing, he was able to do that. He was with all the men. He can get it taken care of, but not being there to actually save them.
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean.
The killing would be okay because he'd be like, okay, I was able to do that. I was useful,
But it's the fact of why he had to do it in the first place.
Right.
And if you think about it, Roger had Brianna to tell. Remember last episode, it was weighing on him heavy. And he was like, I have something to tell you. Will you hear me? Basically, he was asking her, will you hear my confession? Because when he had her turn out the light, what did he say to her? I killed a man. He had her to talk, to about that. Fergus really doesn't have anyone, if you think about it in that sense, because he can't go to Marsali because Marsali was a victim of all of that. So he wouldn't feel right going to her. Of course, he's not going to go to Claire. I don't think he would feel comfortable going to Jamie because, if you think about it, Jamie done killed a lot of people.
Right. And that's why I said, I really don't think he had a problem with the killing. I don't. Just how being in the brothel, the things he has seen, he's been through. Roger, I totally get why he had.
Yeah.
He's not about this life. He wasn't about this life. So, that first time, because even Brianna, she ain't had no problem. She wasn't confessing when she killed.
Right.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? She was all good. She got that shotgun or that rifle, whatever, and shot him in the head, whatever. But
it was a different thing too, because she wasn't killing Bonnet out of malice.
No, she wasn't.
She wasn't. And that's always been something that's been a little hard for me with her character, because the way they wrote her character with Bonnet, it's like she had sympathy towards him.
That's what I was thinking, because she didn't want him to drown. I was very confused when it happened. So
she didn't want him to suffer because she knew that he had nightmares about it.
So
that's a whole whole.
However, she's still killed, but Roger, I can totally understand having a difficulty with that.
Yeah, yeah,
from his background.
Yeah. But then, like I said, for Fergus, maybe he didn't have an issue with the killing part, because you're right. He would have felt useful. Like, oh, okay, I'm out here with Milord. I'm out here with Roger, with Ian, his family. And he's avenging for all, the person who, for all intents and purposes, is his mother. Yeah. So, I agree with you on that. I just think maybe he's feeling it more because of the reason he had to kill.
And he's talking to Marsali about it, but he just needs to understand everyone felt bad about this situation, about not being there. And it happens.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like, you weren't there because you were lazing about or you were doing something. Like they literally blew the steel up.
Yeah, like
and
you were taking
guys,
a nap or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And you guys were going to try to make sure, one, nobody was hurt. Two, make sure the fire wasn't going to spread. Three, to see what you could salvage of your livelihood, because that was Fergus's job. He was the one making the whiskey. Mm-hmm. So he's got all of that compounded now, because not only were you gone when that happened, but you just lost your source of income too. The one thing that made you feel useful on the ridge is gone. Mm-hmm. You know, that was the way that you helped contribute to taking care of your family. So yeah, Fergus, he
doesn't get that if he was there, he could be dead.
Yeah.
And she won't have anyone. The children won't have a father. Marcy won't have a husband.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand that. You wasn't going to protect. The way they came in there.
Yeah.
They already killed one person.
Mm-hmm. So, the only other male that was there, because they probably would have looked at all the men as threats and been like, okay, yeah, you know what? Kill all of them. And then take the women, or take the witch, or take whatever they want to call Claire at that time. So yeah. But it's okay. Fergus, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
It will be.
It will be. But I can't wait to talk about the next episode. Because I got some things to say about that one. And we will get to that shortly. But you have any final thoughts on this episode?
Not at all. I think we have covered every bit of this episode.
This episode was really good. And like I said, it tugged on my heartstrings. I cried so much with this episode. And I was like, oh, this is only episode 2. And y'all got me crying like this. What are y'all going to do to me for the rest of the season?
I know.
I don't know. But looking forward to it, whatever it is. So for now, that's it for our show. You can find us online at www.fandomhybrid.com. We are on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Fandom Hybrid. You can watch our videos on YouTube and listen to us on all major podcast streaming platforms. Thanks for listening. We hope you join the conversation next time.